I really started doing that practice in earnest when I started Bryzos. So 7-8 years ago or something like that. And it's just a way to refine it. But really, any element that you're seeing that makes it out into our software has gone through, I would say, more than 5 iterations at this point. It's probably in the hundreds. I mean, how much I work, and as a team, I mean, we meet collectively and, you know, roll ideas into play because it's got to get beat up, you know, because that would be a caution to anyone who creates anything, which is if you're going to put it out in the world.
Everybody says, I love it. Let's do it.
Yeah, make sure that, because it's a pain to get something commercially ready. And it's nothing worse than wah, wah. You know, so you want to make sure that this is beat up.
Right.
And you know, here we always know we have the solution has been hammered, massaged. It's totally right when everyone in the room is like, I don't know if they're happy, but no one says anything.
Right. They can't come up with anything.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, all right, that's not. If you get a like,
I think it's ready.
If you get a that's one of those, that's not horrible. I'm like, that's not the same thing as this is great, but we're getting there.
Right.
So, but anyway, that's a long preamble and a long way for me to say, Allen Heggs, thank you for coming today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And so we're here today you just said to me as we were talking, there might be a book in there.
Yeah.
And that was you referring to you. But before we jump into all of that, tell me, where are you living? What is Helcrist? What do you guys do?
Yeah, Helcrist LLC is a DBA of Helcrist Ironworks Incorporated, which was a company that was started by my father and his brother back in 1973.
Okay.
My father was a machinist, and my uncle was a shop fabricator, a mechanic. A lead mechanic, so he knew how.
And what town are you guys? What city are you guys in?
Philadelphia.
Okay,
Philadelphia, PA.
Okay.
Philadelphia, PA. So those two guys, my father being the youngest brother, and the brother that he went in business with being, I'm gonna say about 7 or 8 years older.
Okay.
So there's quite a gap there between, you know, me dragging, you know, the little brother around, you know, a guy 7, 8 years older than, it's a little hard to keep up with.
They basically didn't even grow up together.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Right. So for these two guys to come together and formulate this, you know, what started off as a small residential ironworks back in Philadelphia, and for it to grow to what it is today, 52 years later, and having a child that wasn't even, you know, even thought about, you know, bringing into the business, now being the second generation torchbearer, and I am preparing the third generation. It's quite an accomplishment, you know, and
you know what's interesting is I think about this, like the difference between this and that is getting started. And the fact that they just got started and they didn't get hung up on they were just like, good enough, let's go.
Yeah, how about that?
You know, like,
how about that?
Good enough, let's go. And, but anyway, sorry to interrupt. So 52 years later. Yeah.
52 years later. I mean,
and
here we are.
Gen 3.
Gen 3.
Yeah.
Gen 3. We have, in the commercial industrial space, you know, we have completed hundreds of projects from hotels, schools, athletic facilities, pharmaceutical. I mean, you name it. We have, you know, completed some type of project, you know, in that space.
All the food groups.
Yeah. How about that?
So let me jump down in there. So when you say we've completed projects, what does Helcrist bring to the project? Like, what do you guys do?
We are structural and miscellaneous steel fabricators.
Okay.
And erectors, but we specialize in the fabrication of structural steel members, miscellaneous metals, stairs, rails, roof dunnage, anything that you find in a commercial structure that's in steel, we can do it. And we're the only minority-owned entity that does that in the city of Philadelphia easily.
Really?
But I think our bandwidth is tipping on New York to D.C.
Really?
Yes.
So backing up one step, so if I were a developer of some sort or a city, we got our plans all drawn out, we'd hand it off to you guys and say, will you quote this for us?
Yes.
And maybe that's just the skeleton of the building, all the steel. That's something you guys would be game for,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And then it sounds like you would also go down to maybe a smaller kind of custom, much more, I mean, that's obviously custom, but maybe more of a job, custom shop kind of concept for other things too? Or are you guys pretty much doing the larger structures at this point?
No. Good question. We cover it all. You
Okay.
know, a GC will come to us, not necessarily a developer. A developer will probably hire a GC.
Okay.
And the general contractors put together their own consortium, and we try to align ourselves with as many of the players that are out here that are doing the kind of work that we specialize in. So being part of their bid list, we get these opportunities to bid on the structures that they're looking at doing the entire
Got it.
project.
So winding it back a little bit, I mean, when I look at generational companies, and you sum up what that generation did, there are a couple themes that usually emerge. Like, let's say, generation one was typically just like grindstone, right? Like, just get out there, get some business. We got to get the front wheel off the ground, and we got to get this thing going. Then Gen 2 usually grew up around that. And so they take it with the same level of seriousness because they were there when then the wheel came back down for a second. That one came back down. Shit, we got to pull in. And then we try again. So around there, and you understood that it was like the lifeblood of like your dad and your uncle were just like making this thing go. And so, but oftentimes Gen 2 is the one that's like, okay, we don't have to worry as much about the wing falling off as much as we used to. We've got inroads built, and now let's really focus on who we are and what we do.
How we keep it in the air.
Yeah, and so thematically speaking, you sort of see these, and then when you get later generations, maybe Gen 4 is the one selling the business because they're so far removed from the initial struggle.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
I'm not going to say it's nothing to them. It's much to them, but the company actually at that point now is a level of maturity that maybe another company does more with it than you ever could.
Yeah,
right?
that's the fear. It's the thought that we all have as owners. For me, like you said, I saw what my father and my uncle did, and I got that front row seat to see both what to do, what not to do, how to do it, how not to do it. And as a, front row, spectator, I'm sitting here like, okay. Oh, that didn't work out too well.
I wouldn't have done it that way.
But, I'm like mental note, right? So, that second generation is in the best position to appreciate the legwork of the initial onset.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we we're not the trailblazer, but we're right there, riding shotgun.
Yeah.
And so me and my cousin, which was my cousin being my uncle's son.
Okay.
Me and him.
Are you guys roughly the same age?
No, he's about 5 years older than me.
Okay.
And he's since retired as well.
Okay.
But we got a chance to follow each of
your dads,
leaders, our dads, So I got a chance to watch my uncle. He got a chance to watch his uncle while we watched our fathers.
Sure.
So, it was a matter of, what's your takeaway?
Yeah.
What do you want out of this thing? And I could tell you, I didn't want any of it. Then when I saw enough, I was
Ain't
like, I'm out of
that
here. I don't want
some
this.
shit?
Yeah, oh my gosh. You gotta be kidding me.
That
What's
seems like a lot of work.
5 days a week, 7 to 3:30, the dirt, the grime? No.
What kind of projects were they doing early days?
We started off, we were doing porch rails, window guards for residential properties. We did anything ornamental, and we were really good at it. All throughout the city, our rails, our window guards, our cellar doors are still, if the house is still erected.
You like drive by, you're like,
Yeah, I did that.
we did that one right there.
My kids, and my wife and kids, they're like, Dad, please, not. Did I tell you?
When I was 10 years old, I watched Uncle So-and-so and my dad.
Well, I'm like, that's all I got,
Right.
Give me a break, All I got is these small accomplishments,
Yeah.
Now, they're much larger, but, they don't appreciate the buildings I've built anymore, and they do the window guards or step
Well, I'll
rails.
tell you, when someone has ordered window guards and they get delivered and put on, you've made someone very happy because they didn't order them for no reason.
100, yes.
They're like, you gave them some peace of mind.
Yes.
They could sleep a little better. And
See,
as
you
we were
get
talking,
it. You understand it, right?
Yes, I do.
appreciate that, So
well, we were talking earlier about your Garmin body battery
Yes,
earlier.
Yeah.
And those window guards, I mean, I bet someone's waking up with a little bit better of a charge.
Yeah. And we're talking about in the 70s,
Yeah.
right? The 70s and the 80s in Philadelphia. It's not the city it is today. So times were a little tougher. People were living in a little bit more of a desperate way.
Yeah.
To some extent. And we did what we could to offer them as much security and peace of mind as we could.
Yeah.
But who would have thought it would have turned into what we see today,
So when did you make, I mean, I would imagine if someone ordered some window guards, you have got respect for that request, you'd probably make them. But was it you and your cousin that sort of jumped from we're a window guard company to we're getting into buildings, or had that already sort of been set into that plan been put into action?
No, the dads got us into the commercial lane.
Okay.
Yeah, so by the time my uncle retired, he was the first to leave the business. He cashed out, he retired. We were well into the commercial industrial sector.
Okay.
So
do you know what their first commercial project was? Or it just kind of came up to a boil and no one really thought too much about it?
My earliest recollection was our opportunity that we did for Cheney University, their athletic, their football field.
This is in Philly?
Yeah, in the outskirts.
Okay.
They had bleachers, and we were building rails and some of the structure for their bleachers early on.
Retrofitting?
From what I recall, I think there was a degree of retrofitting to go along with some new guardrails and things of that nature. And I remember being out there as a child. I'm just basically playing, I'm just running around, I didn't really have to do very much, but that was one of my earliest memories of us getting into something that was a little different from the beaten path of residential.
You see how you got there from railings to railings,
Yeah.
though.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I guess maybe, possibly.
Yeah.
Wasn't there.
Yeah. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. The railing type changed, and we morphed, and we found a different customer base. And to your point, railings to railings.
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Railings to railings. Yeah. There's a title in there somewhere.
How about that?
But so you remember, so your dad, your uncle, gets you guys on the commercial track, and when did you? Well, let's time out on the business for a second, because you commented earlier. You're like, oh, I don't want to do that stuff. So we were talking earlier, and I have a good sense of what Helcrist does, and I want to talk about how did we get there. We understand how your dad and your uncle, got there, but you didn't start there, and you ended up there. So we were talking about, you said something, an affinity for money, which I thought was an interesting comment, which was also, you said differently later, which is you just have an entrepreneurial streak in you, and that could not be ignored. So, what's your first memory of setting up business?
I love that segue. That's awesome. We were talking earlier, and I was sharing with you how, as a child, very early on, I had this, passion for money, not knowing what money really, really was, but I had this passion for money. So what I would do, me and my sister, we would make our own money. Mm-hmm. And I would always make sure I made way more than her, right?
Well, right, yeah.
So I'd have this massive piles of $100.
She's like, why do you have so much?
Yeah,
Don't worry about
that. Don't worry about that.
Asking a lot of questions.
I'm working on something here, right?
Yeah.
So we would set up a store. So my toys, my books, and whatever I wanted to sell to her, I'd put a price on, and I would charge her. And, of course, the job is to get all of her money.
Yeah.
And not really give up too much of mine.
Really no different than Monopoly.
Right. Only we were too young to really know that game yet.
Yeah.
So this even predates Monopoly.
Yeah.
So for us, playing this game, I just really needed a consumer.
Right.
So I guess sort of like Trump and the tariffs, we just
need something to happen here.
We just needed a consumer, So I, very early on, just had this thing where I just wanted to make money. And I just loved the whole idea of it. And I went on from there to starting elementary school, selling candy and toys for money.
What were your best movers? Candy?
The squirrels.
Tell me about the squirrels. I'm not
Oh,
familiar
these squirrels were like caramel and peanuts. And
are these small, like wrapper, like individually wrapped?
Individually wrapped. They, I guess they're about 1.5 inches by 1/4 inch. Like quick hitters, right?
Right, like a little taffy situation,
like a taffy, but it was chewable enough to, you could really manipulate it in your mouth, have a really great, candy experience.
Get your money's worth.
Oh my God, I sold tons of it. Tons of it.
Crushing it out there.
Yeah, I'd buy them for like.
Do you have your sister making them at home?
Yeah.
You had a no-cost manufacturing process.
How about that? I didn't think of that at the time, but I did one better, right?
Uh-huh.
I took my inventory. I bought it for a penny a piece, and I sold them for a nickel.
Okay.
I 5x'd my money, So,
And it's probably a quick turn.
Oh my God!
But you own it for a day or two?
You didn't even get to recess. If you had some inventory by the time you finished recess, you weren't a good salesman.
Well, you got to go to your purchasing department too and tell them to buy some stuff people want to eat. Want to chew.
Yeah. I talked to the candy shop owner and told her.
That shit straightened out. Well, I'm thinking if I'm you and I'm trying to sell this stuff in a school, I'm like, I need a low-profile chew. Where you're not getting busted in class.
Exactly.
Something that doesn't make a ton of noise when you're trying to unwrap it. So you're thinking like a wax paper is usually pretty quiet. Like the salt taffy, like that doesn't make a ton of noise versus like a Doritos bag, which makes an insane amount of noise.
Right. So back in the day, you had the Sugar Daddy.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You remember those?
That's the yellow and brown wrapper.
It's a lot of exposure there.
Yeah,
you
can get
so
pinched.
You need something that you can pop in, teacher doesn't see.
Yeah, like when they turn towards the chalkboard, you bang, hit it,
boom,
and you're like,
you're good to go.
And you can't be back there drooling out.
Yeah, and I'm like, I could do this forever.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm making money. And it went on to cutting grass, shoveling snow, and then ultimately into DJing by the time I was 14. I had always made my own money.
What are the top 3 songs that got the floor moving when you're DJing?
Wow. Back in the day, when I first got started, I was 14 when I first started professionally DJing, meaning that
which means you've been doing it for a minute.
Yeah, we got hired. Yeah, I had to stop by the time I got married. But
so if you're getting paid at 14, when did you start messing around with DJing?
Oh, I started with the records as a child.
So are you scratching DJing?
No,
or you're just playing the set list DJing?
For me, I could pick whatever I wanted.
Okay.
My uncle had a built-in turntable suitcase. So I had the 2 turntables, right?
Oh, wow. That was serious gear back then.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, you're talking about 1970.
Who's making this?
7.
Is it like Technique, like
This predates
Panasonic?
Techniques, Panasonic weren't out. We had Bose speakers.
Early Bose.
I remember we had Bose speakers, 901s.
Mm-hmm.
We had a nice 4-channel Randall.
Are those
lamp.
the ones that one side's angled?
Yeah, they were like a house built.
Yes, those are classic.
Pentagon. So with a couple of tweeter drivers in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, we had good sounding equipment.
Gear.
So I did grand openings, lawn parties, wedding receptions, things of that nature. My uncle would come around. Come on, got a gig for you. I was making.
He's your agent also?
Yeah, well, this is a different uncle. This is a different uncle. This is a different.
Was he taking a cut? You can't have a room full of entrepreneurs.
Yeah, how about that? You know, he paid me really nice.
He did.
Oh
okay.
my God, he took care of me. I mean, here I am, 14 years old, and I'm like,
handing you cash.
oh my gosh, you know. And I hate to say it, but I was able to drink at those parties.
Not your fault.
You know, it was just, occupational hazard, right?
Aggressive bartending. You know. So what are the top 3? What are the songs that you're like, if you can remember, like, if I throw this on, I got to put it here in the set list because I don't wanna...
Yeah. I know what you're saying. There was one song I really, really got the party started with was "I'm Your Boogeyman," Casey and the Sunshine Band.
Know it well.
Oh my goodness, that did the trick, right?
That band was so good.
Oh man, they were amazing. They were amazing. I mean, everything KC did was just off the hook. You know,
Yeah.
You could play his whole album and literally wear the crowd out. You know, that was always a good one. There was a.
I mean, Staying Alive's pretty fresh still, if that's working for that crowd.
Staying Alive would just
Actually,
be sort of like an in-betweener, kind of like while they're, folks are eating, engaging.
Taking
but
a time,
after, right, there was this time where you knew that the libation had kicked in.
All right, hitting the throttle.
Yeah, now it's time to go for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had your playlist for that. And then you had just your warm-up stuff that you threw out there, your Tina Marie, you throw in your Earth, Wind, and Fire, and
all the layups.
Oh, yeah, those are just gimmies,
Yeah.
And then when it came time to really start banging.
Yeah, get the hitters out.
Yeah, you start going into Parliament, Flashlight.
Oh, such a good song.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. I was literally just listening to that over the weekend.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Oh, my
it's
God.
such a good song.
Man, there's nights where...
Or Drop the Bomb on Me.
Oh, yeah, you drop, yeah.
You know they hold the same note that entire song? That's the Gap Band, right?
Yep.
Where they hold this weird chord the entire song.
Really?
I don't know if you ever noticed the next time you listen to it, which you'd have to do on purpose because you'd never otherwise hear it.
Pay attention to it.
But they start it in the beginning, and they literally just hold that synth the entire song. It's just crazy.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I never paid attention to that.
Yeah, and it's like a weird chord, so that it's, I don't know if it's a triad or what it is, but there are a lot of chords that work with it because it's like this really dissonant, weird sound.
Okay.
So it's like
so you're into music, right?
Yeah.
I see the guitar. You play.
Yes.
Guitar?
Yeah, well, I started on the bass.
Okay.
This is where I started. And did that, probably picked that up when I was like 12 or something like that. Because I remember I walked into my dad's office at the house and I was like, Pop, I'm bored. He's like, I don't much give a shit. But I'll tell you, just to tell you, there's a bass guitar in that cabinet over here with a Mel Bay instruction book. You should learn how to play it.
Give it a shot.
And I said, well, I can see that you honestly don't care, so I'm going to stop bothering you. I'm going to grab. So I haven't put it down since. And then I, along the way, picked up, probably 2 years later, picked up guitar, and I've played them equally ever since. So I've starting to be a while, 30-something years, and been in bands all along the way and stuff like that.
Now, are you more of a lead or a rhythm guitar player?
It depends on. I'm a lead player if I've got time to really work it. But I'm probably a much more right hand strong player in general. Much more like my clock. I'm much more rhythmic, and I gravitate towards that. Like I think it's fun playing with time more than playing with notes.
Me too. I enjoyed that when I played. There's just a different energy with the, when you just strumming, you can just, blur out some notes and muffle them and just get into it. I love that more than the lead, just picking and plucking.
And
I just wasn't. I never played with that kind of feeling.
Yeah, and I knew I don't have the dexterity to ever be like an Eric Johnson or somebody who can just tear up the neck. So I was going to be more like, if I was going to be really focused on lead, it'd be more of, not that I could ever reach it, but B.B. King was not a blazer. He was more of, I find the right notes and I play them. Whereas you had like a Stevie Ray Vaughan that's just going to leave a Stratocaster like in a pile of wood with a bunch of metal on the floor. Like, how the fuck did you do that? And he just played with such command. Right. And also, when I was really learning how to play, Dave Matthews Band was coming up.
Okay.
And I think that their first half of their body of work, I think, is ridiculously good. And then, like a lot of bands tell the same story, they punch through and they start to lose what the essence of them. And he's a super rhythmic player. I mean, he does complicated. You can always tell when somebody grew up playing by themselves.
Oh, okay.
Right? Because they're doing call and response to themselves.
Oh, okay.
And that's what I was doing a lot of playing by myself for a long time. And I was like, that guy learned by himself because he had no one to play with. So he's doing bass lines and doing all this intricate stuff, but he's so rhythmic.
Yeah.
And that's what really made me lean into his playing. I think there's another guy, Leo Kaki. I don't know if you've ever heard that name. He's obscure. Like, he's mainstream obscure, but he's just an acoustic player. And I forget the name of the song. I can get to it. I heard him play that song, and I was like, I didn't know rhythmically you could do that with an acoustic. Just the way he's, like, all the palm muting and then, all the stuff he was doing. And I sat there and just, like a psychopath, just learned.
Just sucking it in.
Yeah, and just would sit there and try and get the pick to make that noise, and was going to the guitar store to find the right thickness to get it to click right and doing all that stuff. And,
now, let me ask you this. Have you ever gotten into Pat Metheny?
No. Mm-mm.
No. Mm-mm. Pat Metheny, amazing jazz fusion guitars.
Okay. I'll write that down.
Pat Metheny, you got to check him out. He was one of my favorite guitar players back in the day. He was leaning jazz fusion toward that side, but he had this amazing way of synthesizing his guitar.
Okay.
So he used to do these kind of blends with Lyle Mays, who was a keyboard pianist.
I've heard the name.
Lyle Mays. And so those two played a lot together, the Pat Metheny group, Pat Metheny Project, I'm thinking something like that.
Okay.
But, man, some of their early stuff was
really good.
Oh, my goodness.
I'll check it. I'm always love hearing about
it's a little different from the strum, kind of rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
But, man, he takes you on a journey.
Playing with sound.
Oh, my gosh. That right there was something I said, wow. Because it's not fast.
Yeah.
It's technical. It's ethereal.
Right.
I'm like, whoa. I mean, you could just lay back, man, and just literally be in his world.
Isn't that cool? So it just sweeps you away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes, growing up, you hear somebody play like that, and you're like, I'm just going to go sell my stuff right now. Because if that is possible,
I'm not getting
anywhere with this thing. Yeah. That's when you're like, this just became a hobby. It's like, if you want to be a model, you go to the modeling agency, you're like,
Yeah,
I'm in the wrong place.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
that's kind of how it is when you listen to
There's
those
a
guys.
pizza parlor down the
Yeah.
street. I think
They
you're
need
better
someone
suited
building the
for-
boxes down there. That'd be perfect for you. So, in this discussion, I can pull us back to the main line here,
Absolutely.
which is you're going to school, and we're hearing a lot about what you like to do outside of school. How about inside of school?
Well, inside of school, I was always a smart kid. I always managed to test into the A-frame groups,
With the Peloton, right?
you know. But I didn't like school.
Yeah.
I didn't like school at all. School to me was
Where you sell candy.
yeah. What I wanted to know was how to increase my EBITDA
Yeah.
in third grade.
Yeah.
And we weren't quite getting there, and I waited for it in fourth grade, and I wanted to learn about, how to build a business, how to market, how do I increase, my profitability. And I'm in algebra class, and I'm like, I don't see anything here I need.
See X's and Y's.
Yeah, so we moved through high school into college, and just never really found any kind of subject matter that I thought was really going to be beneficial to what I didn't fully grasp would be my destiny,
Right.
but I knew what I didn't want. And what I didn't want was to waste my time learning esoteric information.
Right.
So,
That'll always be in that book if I need it.
yeah,
I can always pick that up if I need to know
You know
more.
what I mean? I know where to go.
Yeah, job done.
But yeah, so I never, for me in school, I'm not diminishing education. I mean, I think it's
It's
I made sure
objective based. Like, how did you feel the best way to spend your time was?
Absolutely.
And if people make a career out of academics, some people reap out of it what they need, and they go do something else.
And if you think about some of the most successful individuals that we know today, very few of them have this traditional, formal education. The bachelor degree. Some do, a lot don't. We don't see enough illustration where the lack of that formal education has a direct correlation with your potential to be successul, financially successful.
Yeah, I think what schools have masterfully sort of cornered that market, right? Which is, I will always agree with you that there's no harm in knowing more.
Right.
Right. But what is our objective here? I think the objective is to arm somebody with the smarts to go do something with themselves and be a contributing member of society, right? We're going to fill up this tank, right? And once you sort of are at a point where you're like, okay, I've got the desire to go do something, and I feel like I've got the requisite understanding, I can go give it a shot. And if I feel like I don't know enough, maybe I'll come on back. But sometimes that's the best way to get back.
I like that, because you got me thinking about how if you don't have any idea, right, what you want to do, almost the same way you might go to a gas station with a car that has a tank on E.
Mm-hmm.
So you pull into the gas station, and the gas station attendant fills you up with gasoline so that you can go. But what happens if you already have something in the tank?
Yeah.
And I kind of felt that when I was in school, I had something already in the tank. I didn't need I didn't have any room for you to fill me up with anything. I wasn't willing to use anything that I had stored, to make room for what you were offering me.
Yeah.
So I made the conscious decision. Now I'm gonna stick with what I got. And I like what you're saying. Let's get out here and let's get the popping. Let's see what we have here. And I know where you're at.
Yeah.
If I need to double back, if you happen to have something I need and I didn't realize it at the time, I know where to find you.
It's like, look, I gave you guys 10 years to get me smart. If you can't do it in 10, You can't do it in 15. All right.
about that?
So, I mean, you literally have had 10 years
Yep.
to get me going. So you bring maybe some of your thinking back to your dad on this, it sounds like. And he wants you, you know, based on what you're saying, you're not getting Fs and stuff, but your dad's thinking that maybe you should be getting higher grades and, you know, saying you can't go hang out with the guys, you play baseball down the street or whatever. You're going to sit here and you're going to work on your math. And what'd you tell him? I thought that was pretty great.
Yeah, well, I told him, I said, listen, Dad, we got to stop with these punishments. They're just not working.
You're cramping my style.
You know, you're taking TV away from me. I can't go outside and play. And it's all about these grades. What are you so fixated on these grades for? You know, why don't you ask me what I'm learning? You know, I said, how about this? I'll make you a deal. I said, I'll graduate high school, right? But just leave it to me.
Yeah.
You take your hands off. Let me deal with that. This is my life. This is my future. If whatever decision I make is for me, right? Don't worry about it. I guarantee you I'll get out of high school if that's what you want. And he said, all right, I'll leave it to you, you know? And we had that conversation in 8th grade.
Wow.
You know, and
he walked out of that room. He's like, did I just agree to that shit? It's like, he's good.
And I'm like, did he disagree to that?
Yeah, you're like, oh, I do have something here.
Yeah, so, you know, I walked in the other room, turned my TV on after about 2 months of not being able to watch TV because of the punishment I was on. I'm like, okay, I'm home free now. But, you know, in all seriousness, I was very adamant about the fact that I am not satisfied with what I'm getting in the form of an education. Now, I don't know what education is supposed to be like, but I'm not liking what I'm getting. Not hating it, but I can't see any, I saw no usefulness.
Yes.
There.
And it's sort of arbitrary when you stop anyway. Like a bachelor's is a series of classes and so forth, but if we're going to go in that line of thinking, why does that mean we're done?
Right. And if you're sitting in a classroom reading some information given to you out of a book, the way it was presented to me, now maybe it was just me, the way it was presented to me, it was as though this is absolute. Mm-hmm. There's nothing to add to it. This is it.
Then what do you need me for?
What do you need me for? Let's wrap this up. What are we talking about? Right?
So I don't have to do any thinking. This has already been done.
It's already been done. Let me get to doing what I think I need to do for me.
You can read my book later.
Yeah, how about that? So, you know, that was my take. My take was like, well, listen, I have nothing to add here. Leave me be. So, I mean, it seemed to have worked out.
Yeah. So when did you leave school? What was your last year?
No, I graduated.
You graduated
That
high
was the
school.
deal. I had to graduate.
And so that's when you got into the Helcrist world along those.
Well,
he started bringing you to work or something.
Yeah, well,
you've probably always been going, but
as it turned out, you know, with that agreement came an early work life.
Okay, was that a fine print part of the agreement?
Yeah, I think it was. I think he kind of said, I don't know about this. I better get him started early. So it was at 14 I started, I would say, going to work with my father.
Okay.
You know, I wasn't amenable to it, but it was something I ended up having to do. Mm-hmm. The headlock had something to do with it.
Right. I wouldn't say it was voluntary.
But I did get a donut and, you know, hot chocolate in the morning on the way to work. But, at 14, I started working. I used to have to show up 7 o'clock with the guys. I'm on summer vacation, you know.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. My guys were around 11 o'clock. I'm already in my mind while I'm sweeping, thinking about what my guys are doing. Mm-hmm. They're at the baseball diamond now. It's, oh, man, they already started in the second inning, you know. And probably by lunchtime to be over playing basketball. And here I'm sitting here.
Stuff.
Oh, my God. It was terrible. But there was no way around it. I had made my bed. Now I had to live in it.
Yeah.
And we made the best of it. I fought, Shep. I fought, man. I fought my heart out, man, to get out from underneath that. But I just didn't have the leverage.
Yeah. Well, he said, he probably didn't enjoy it totally either, I suppose. He's doing something he felt like was, you're a parent.
Yeah. As a result of that experience and the way it kind of shaped and kind of contorted, my emotional well-being, with regard to being forced to do something I didn't want. I just got finished telling you I didn't want to learn something I didn't want to learn.
Right.
Right. So now here I'm getting forced to do something else. And I just don't like being bent into things that
you're ready when you're ready.
Yeah. So I never did that to my children.
Yeah.
I talked to them, my wife and I, we would talk to them. And I would allow other people to pour into them, coaches, mentors, and it was kind of a collective thing. I want you to make the best decision for you. And even in one of my children's cases, there was an educational system that was starting to do to my son what I had kind of experienced, and that was this molding and shaping, and we don't like the way he's gone. We don't like the way he thinks, and I said, don't worry about it. I'll take him out to school.
Yeah.
If I get it, he's not your kind of kid. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But he's going to stay the way he is because that's the way God made him.
Yeah.
And he wasn't a problem child. He wasn't fighting or, disruptive. And he had this alpha kind of personality.
He was ready to get going.
He knew what he wanted, and I'm a firm believer. If you know what you want, you're the only one that knows. Yeah. As a child, it's not your job to convince us as adults that, I have a God-given download that is driving me to play the guitar. Yeah. Well, I'm an auto mechanic. What do I care about your God-given download to play the guitar? You're going to come in here and you're going to rotate tires.
Yeah. And you're going to hate every second of it.
Absolutely. And what kind of father, what kind of parent is that, that you would get in the way of, divine, purpose?
I think the one that would be very scared of them making the same mistakes that they had made. Yeah. Is typically where you see that. Yeah. Which is like, well, and I'm not speaking for you, but generally in a pattern-wise, you see that they just have, the parents will feel like, well, I stepped in a lot of shit along the way. Yeah. And I'm seeing a lot in this kid that's in me. Yeah. And they think, they're looking into the future or doing the best they can, and they're sort of maybe making some guesses about what their behavior is going to be. And the reality is, you can be as long as you're putting the time and effort into doing something well. I mean, you can literally be a clown and make a ton of money. I mean, you don't have to be. Right. There's so many ways to skin the cat. Right. And if you see someone who's leaning into something, maybe let them lean into it. You know?
And we talked about that a little bit earlier about this, about this this myopic view. Yeah. Of the way, we see life, and for parents to have that, I think it's toxic to a child. Particularly with the fully developed, if you will, brain that they have compared to that of a child who's still dreaming and still adventurous and still, full of this vitality. And here you're bringing your life experiences, whether they're good or bad. I mean, because guess what? What if you turned out to be your father was a very successful auto mechanic, and he had a chain of, stores throughout the country, we're not diminishing, the occupation, But, you know, what if his view is like, listen, son, you know what? If you could just hang the guitar up, you could be a millionaire.
Yeah.
You know? So it has nothing to do with the economic potential outcome. It's about destiny.
Mm-hmm.
It's about destiny. And I think as a parent, it's incumbent upon us to allow destiny to happen. You're just simply a steward over this child or those children. You're not their, you're not their, you know, you're not their dictator.
Right.
You know, and you should be one of their biggest fans. You know.
Yeah. My brother maybe said this, but he's like, raising kids is, it's the art of breaking them without crushing them. And I was like, that's true, because there is like, okay, we do have guardrails. Okay.
Sure.
Like you can't be on that side.
Right.
You got to be between here. So
Sure.
you got to break them a little bit to like, you got to break them and say, okay, this is how much birth you're getting for this.
Right.
But we don't want to crush you.
Right.
Right. So I thought that was really simple and well said, because I got what he meant.
Yeah. And I love that this conversation is really, really taking that as a foregone conclusion. We're not really talking about waywardness. We're not talking about irresponsibility. We're talking about the room to grow. Yeah. And that's for us all. Yes. I mean, there's entrepreneurs out here that'll watch and hear this and maybe take something away with this comment that I'm going to share with regard to, our mates. Mm-hmm. I can tell you, personally as an entrepreneur, some of my ideas weren't real great, but the passion was there. The commitment was there. The result, not so much. How do you continue to fight for your entrepreneurial independence and the freedom that you need to be able to try things that have never been tried before, or try things you've never tried before, right? With the weight of responsibility of a family. Here's your wife that's pregnant with your first child, or you just had a child, or you have two young children and you're in an apartment, and your husband is saying, listen, let's take the last bit of this nest egg and I'm going to buy ostrich eggs. And I really think that this ostrich farm is really going to do big things, And I'm telling you, honey, I can just see an ostrich in every yard, And she's like, honey, I love you. And I want to, ostriches? Come on, don't you believe in me? And I'm reducing it to the ridiculous, because what if it wasn't as ridiculous as ostrich eggs, but it was something so unique that it just isn't on every heart and mind yet. Yeah. But it has the potential, right?
It does. And that's the iteration. The books I'm talking about is you've got to work this concept. One visual I think of when I think about not getting, because I think the force that disrupts anybody is frustration. And frustration, I mean, that it gets in the way of everything. And I think I can lean on music, which is when you're writing a song, if you want to not finish that song, judge it before you're finished. Right? And the to me, like, part of the art of entrepreneuring, it is letting it flow. You've got to and I don't mean just ideas. I mean, just let things flow and create times to judge it. A song's easy because it's this long. So you can just, you concentrate for 30 minutes, and that's the key to all things, whether it's is just get the shit out of your head. Yes. Get it out of your head. Get it out of your mouth, whatever it is, get it out, and then start judging it.
How about that? I love that. Get it out of your system even.
Just get it out. And
try it.
The thing I think about is, like, if this were a match and I was going to drag this down to scale, this book is really long to this match. Think how many times this thing's going to spit and sputter. spit and sputter, spit and it finally lights. Right? So that's all you're doing is you're spitting and sputtering, and finally you light it.
Right.
Because you've got the right things occurring. You got enough heat, oxygen, and fuel.
And what if you were just given that little bit?
And most people stop right there.
Yep.
Because they don't know that sputter was the sign of progress. They saw it as a sign of failure.
And to your point, there's probably cases where there are folks that wanted to continue.
Yeah.
And were dissuaded because of frustration. And that frustration began to breed doubt. You know, that doubt began to breed fear. And that fear after fear is just over.
It's over.
It's just over.
Just take your 10 poles down.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to last. But it's the amount, I think there's just different ways to think about these things. And when I see something sputter, I now know that sputters. Right? I didn't know that before. And there can't be an infinite amount of sputtering, right? So, and I know that something impossible, which is this match and that, whatever that paper is called, eventually that thing literally catches on fire. It's insane.
Nice.
You know, so I just think about that and I'm like, how many people stopped right there? How many people stopped right there? And that's part of what keeps me going, which is
And how about that little sulfur scent you got after the first sputter?
Yeah. Oh. Something happened there.
Something happened there.
Yeah.
There was something happened there. I may not fully understand what it is, but something happened there. What if we're given the green light to proceed? Yeah. What if we're able to get the green light to increase the intensity and the velocity that we operate at? You know, and I think a lot of us are, sputtering, at speeds and tempos that are far less required. We're operating at such a low velocity that you can't possibly see the desired outcome because you're dragging the negativity, you're dragging the doubt. You're trying to, you're trying to get this thing started.
You got a wet match,
And here you are, how many of us have given up on dreams and ideas and visions because of the weight that you had to carry and dream too, for me, it's, I'm no different than anyone else, even yourself. Yeah. I mean, we've all had these ideas that we, wanted to venture down, at least for those of us who are entrepreneurs. I mean, for those who have never gotten, to the place where they could see themselves, as the master of their own destiny, maybe not so much. Maybe the structured path was a safer route for them. And there's plenty of people who live amazing lives in a very structured environment. I tell you, my wife, she could care less about entrepreneurism.
Yes.
She would love a corporate job. She's a nurse. Nursing would be, is fine. You tell her when to come to work. You give her list of patients and the care that they need, and she's fine with that. And guess what? The world needs her.
Yes.
The world needs her. So I'm no better, no worse, but I'm the visionary. I'm the guy that I want to do things. I think I can. I think I can. And at this age, I'm still thinking I can.
Yeah.
I'm not done.
Right.
I'm not done. And part of me being in this place took me fighting to maintain this, even though I had to put it on the back burner at times.
Yeah.
And as a father, as a son, as a neighbor, as a friend, as a member in the community, there's so many roles we as men play, and we do it, at the expense of our own dreams and aspirations sometimes.
Yes.
And that's just being a man.
Yes.
But just don't lose it.
Yeah, don't lose it.
Don't lose it.
And it's interesting. You talked about kind of these velocities, and what I've come to adopt, and it's not a fresh thought. It's other people know this, but it's the idea of failing fast, right? Which is like bring that idea to a head quickly. Like as soon as you're like, okay, this looks like it's a decent thought, just go out there and fail and find out about it. Learn it. And as soon as you think about your evolution as nearly a laboratory thing versus like I get one shot of it, and if you pressure all that up versus saying, okay, this is going to be iterative. And if I think of it and know of it that way going in, I've like let a lot of steam out of the kettle. Like it doesn't mean that I'm not in a hurry or urgent or all those things. It means I've given myself permission though to keep going. Right. And if you pressure up the kettle and you take one shot and the thing blows, the ripple effect of that mentality will last with you the rest of your life because you'll remember that one time that the tea kettle blew and it was your fucking fault.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for anyone that is an entrepreneur that's listening, it's like, be prepared, because I know me, I like to say I'm a 10-to-1 idea guy, on a good day.
Right.
Which is the ideas are, always flowing. Some of them don't even make it down on a paper. You start getting good at working them before they get to go down on paper. But it's just an iterative process, and it's about managing decisions is all it is.
I think it's an amazing gift to have. I think it's just an absolute amazing gift to be able to sit here, use your brain, your thought processes, your ability to perceive and bring into your world, a world that's taking place around you, and take a little of this, and oh yeah, take a little of that, and oh yeah, take a little of this, and next thing you know it, and and you're tinkering with life. This is life.
Yeah.
That we have the expansive thought process to be able to say, all right, they use paper to make this book. All right. Okay, paper, book, you can write on it. Okay, what else can I do with this? Mm-hmm. All right, and everything around us has been an evolution, an iterative, right? Evolution of what we used to do with something, but what can we do with it now? So everything around us is by default the result of this entrepreneurial, this creative, this inventive mindedness that, very few people are gifted to be able to do. And I think the reward is anything that manifests, that didn't manifest, that you can say caused to manifest, is a testament to, infinite God is giving you an ability to call those things that be not as though they were. Mm-hmm. So for even Bryzos to be in existence, Bryzos was a concept that was out in the universe, and it took someone who took thought energy to think it into close enough proximity to be able to get a more expansive view of what it could possibly be. At first, it was just a far-off concept of
what if?
What if
Yeah, exactly.
To over time, over that concentrated, dedicated time. Now, whether it was able to, arrive in a matter of months, days, or even years, look at the time. I call Bryzos a success story, right? Because if you look at Bryzos from the frame or the lens of success being measured in time rather than money, right? You can begin to glean every effort that was ever put into the formulation of Bryzos, all the way down to the first check that was deposited. Mm-hmm. So you can go back to day one, Bryzos in a dream, all the way up to that first check that got deposited. And for the checks that got deposited thereafter. Well, the checks that got deposited, right? If we want to establish success or not so successful based on this small little metric, money in the bank, it's too small.
Yes.
We're not giving enough credit due. But if we think about where it first started and the time, the energy, the thoughts, the arguments, the changes, the variations, the trials, the failures, the marketing, the hiring, the capital investment, you know, if we give you credit for all of that, we have to say Bryzos is an amazing, successful undertaking, because guess what? This represents 6, 7, 8 years of effort.
Which is an amazing thing, because people say, wow, it's been 7 years, and they just look at the product, right? Which really proud of and all that, but it's not like you're just working on, like you are pulling a whole constellation of things together, you know, that just even the people that are involved, everyone's personality coming out through this thing, and their expertise and their understanding of, you know, operations, for like all these different things. Like, it takes so long to tease a concise thought out. And it can literally take years to get it perfect. And you know, when that occurs, we knew that when we created this, we sat around, we're like, we got it. We got it.
Nice.
And I mean, we know it's not like version 1. Sure, there's stuff that was on the editing room floor. We need to, you know, work that in. But we were just kind of like, this is good. We just punched above our weight class with this. And I remember, to your original point, when you started talking about the idea of ideas and harnessing, bringing them together, Lee commented one day, he's like, it's amazing that we can sit here and think and then package it into something commercial and people in the world use it. Now, that's not unique to Bryzos. There are many businesses that can do that, but it's equally impressive for them that
you did it.
That we did it, you know, but the idea that you can just put brain power to work, get it onto a piece of paper, put it into some code, push it out in the world, and people are like, I mean, the amount of feedback we get is like, oh my God, this is insanely original. And I see little pieces like an original song, right? I hear a little bit of this, I hear a little bit of that, but like, this is your voice, and or the team voice, in that we just created, just knocking the cover off the ball, and which has just been, now you're talking about earlier, if you want to measure every step that was taken, there, of the minutes, hours, days, years that go into that, what percent of that do you feel like you've knocked the cover off the ball? Sometimes you feel like the ball getting the cover knocked off it. Right. And then as soon as we're talking about, as soon as you feel like you've knocked the cover off the ball, then you're like, we got to keep going, because, you know, that's never enough. Now, you got to be healthy about how you keep going. Yeah. But you clearly have so much experience with this, because this all is resonating with me in a very meaningful way.
Awesome.
And speaking of going in a healthy way, we were talking about earlier, and this is a little bit more, maybe not fun to talk about. This is all really good, but a little bit more sort of maybe not as serious of a tone, but it is, which is our sleep.
Yes.
And we were talking about our sleep out there, and you wear a Garmin that has, I'd never heard of a body battery. Yes. So tell me what's going on. How are you today?
I'm healthy, strong, able-bodied, and I wear the Garmin because I'm a golfer.
Okay. How's the game doing?
The game is fair to middling.
Okay.
Fair to middling. I am very satisfied with where I'm at per the effort I'm afforded to be able to put into it.
Sure. Okay.
and I even feel I'm a little bit ahead of it. I think I'm getting a little bit more bang for my buck with that regard.
Good.
But yeah, the body battery is a feature on the Garmin watch.
And the Garmin's like it's kind of like the hiker sports deal, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's that biometric watch that has all these different sports features to it. Whether you're a cyclist, a runner, jogger, weightlifter,
because
golfer.
those started simply as they used to wear the band kind of thing, and it just give you a pulse. That's where that whole world.
Yeah, you remember the joggers early on used to wear
the bands.
Yeah, to keep a track on how high they got their heart rate up. And that's about
as I sat in the chair and watched them go by, I was like, I wonder what that is.
My heart rate's fine.
I'm good.
But this body battery became a little bit more of an important metric for me as I began to play more golf with less exercise and hydration, right? So I'll give you a quick story.
How'd you get to the Garmin, though? Is this something you seeked out? Your wife give you a Garmin and said, hey,
I'm a gadget guy.
Okay.
I'm a gadget guy.
All right. So you heard about it. You're like, let me see this fucking thing.
I initially bought it just for the ability to track my golf round.
Okay.
I was not concerned about too many of the other features at the time. It became a thing where as you start tinkering, you start discovering new things. And one of the things I was kind of drawn to, because I've had a couple of bouts where my blood pressure had gotten a little elevated. So I began to pay attention to my stress levels, which was a feature that's on the watch. Mm-hmm. Heart rate, so, trying to keep an eye on those two things. And then, body battery, what's this?
Oh, so you stumbled into it?
Yeah, I stumbled into it. Yeah, I didn't buy it for the body battery. This is something I discovered.
You're like, what am I charging this thing?
Yeah, what's going on here? Where's my battery at? Where So I started paying attention to the body battery.
What was your first reading?
So
do you remember?
The early on readings, not really paying attention to what they represented, probably in the 70s. But it all depended on when I would look at it. Now, I'm looking at it 4 o'clock in the afternoon after I've worked. I've been on a few job sites, had a couple of stressful phone calls. Mm-hmm. You check the battery. It's not going to be very high.
Yeah,
it measures from 0 to 100, right? So
so I pulled you off. So you discovered this thing, and then you started kind of paying attention to it?
Yeah. So started using it during my golf rounds, and I noticed. I give you this story, a funny story about this body battery. So we fly out to Arizona, and we're going to play 3 rounds of golf. And being from the East Coast, when we get hot on the East Coast, it's basically because of high humidity and sun.
Can't breathe.
It's hot. Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
I can't make it. Oh my God, I need water.
Yeah.
I'm sweating like a dog. I need water, right? That's what you get over here.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So you hydrate and you get through the round.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on the West Coast, it's not quite the same. You get out in the Arizona region, the arid desert region of, places like Arizona. You kind of cook from the inside.
It's an inside out.
Inside out. So I'm out there. The first time I noticed the body battery, we've done this many times, but this is the first time I'm now in the more consistent use of the watch as far as biometrics are concerned.
Uh-huh.
So now my body battery is more important to me now. So we go out, we play the first day, and mind you, we had been drinking, not heavy drinkers, but we drink beer.
Yeah, cutting loose a little.
Yeah. Hot chicken wings, and and no water.
No.
We're not drinking Gatorade.
Not going to ruin a good day with some water.
So I get out here on the first day. I get through about 9 holes. We teed off. It's probably about 85 when we started. And, your body gets acclimated as, you're outside. If you can get started early enough, or wherever you get started at, if the temperature is going up, your body really doesn't feel it, unless you go into the clubhouse.
Hit that air conditioner.
And hit that air conditioner and come back out.
Yeah,
it's
it's
a whole
tough,
different thing.
tough to hit that back
Right.
nine.
Yeah. So you kind of stay out there, right? So we get to the turn of this one course I'm playing on, and I'm starting to feel like, oh, man, Lord. All right, well, this is day one, but I'm a little tired. We'll be all right, but, jet lag. It's probably jet lag.
Yeah.
Jet
Well,
lag.
it's not you.
I look at the body battery, 4.
4.
Not 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
4 out of 100.
You're about to die.
I'm like, what? I'm down to 4%.
So did it cause some panic?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought.
What's the lowest you remember? Had you been anywhere near there before?
No.
Okay.
No.
New territory.
Oh my God, 4. I'm like, I'm feeling like, is my heart going to just stop beating?
Now
right
you're
now?
waiting.
I'm thinking I'm not going to say it, but I didn't think good things were ahead of me.
Right.
I started panicking, and I'm like, oh my God, 4. Oh my goodness, 4.
There goes my vision.
4. If you have a battery that's down to 4%, the only thing that's left is completely dead.
Yeah, like when our phone gets down to 4, colors start changing. It starts telling you, like, do something. Plug me in.
Think about things that are down to 4%. How long do they tend to last, right? And
We usually say, if a battery's at 4%, you say, my phone's dying.
That's essentially what I'm think's going on. I think I'm dying, Shep. I'm like, this is not good. Stress levels
Through the
up
roof.
through the roof, right? Heart rate. I'm like, I tried to keep my composure. I said, keep yourself together. Keep yourself. You got a family at home. I'm out here on a golf. I'm gonna die
You're
on a
embarrassing
golf.
yourself.
I'm gonna die on a golf course. Is this really gonna happen? Right? So I started drinking water. I threw the beer I was drinking away.
It's like a life-changing moment.
Maybe that might give me 1%. Right?
We got 4 every 10th counts.
I'm making deals. I'm just trying to work this thing out 1% at a time. So I mean, I'm down to a crawl, man. This is not good.
Like taking weight out of your pockets.
I'm lightening the load, man. I'm lightening the load, right? No more driver. I'm just putting. I'm not. I know. No. I'm sitting in the cart under the shade. I'm like, I'm trying to keep this 4% to the clubhouse, man. Lord, please, I can't call. If I call,
don't take my 4%,
yeah, please. I'm like, if I call my wife, that's going to take 2%
minimum.
Can't call her. I'm in trouble. So I take the watch. I say, put this on. Try this.
Get that shit away from me.
I don't want to see it no more. So I gave it to my buddy.
You were fine till you knew you were at 4%.
I was good. I'm like, yo, what we doing tonight, right? Now I'm like,
This moment's been brought to you by Garmin.
tell my wife I love her.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm gonna make it back with you guys. It was great knowing you. Like, what's wrong with you, Al? What's wrong? I said, just look at the watch. 4%. We got through that. I got back to the hotel, and I'm drinking Gatorade, cranberry juice. I'm drinking electro, the water with the electrolytes in it, and
Yeah.
I'm nonstop, and Shep, the crazy serious part about this was I didn't go to the bathroom.
Right.
I was
you were dehydrated.
absolutely dehydrated. Absolutely. I think if you cut me right across here, I would have been medium well.
Just a slow burn.
Oh my God. It was bad. But, I mean, these devices can be lifesavers.
Yeah.
I got my God honest, this message is brought to you by Garmin. I mean, it's not really, but a shout out to Garmin.
Yeah.
Because, I really was oblivious to how woefully close I was to just absolutely probably passing out and needing intravenous, hydration.
Fluids. Yeah.
But, that body battery became a very important feature for me, particularly out in the West, because, like I said, if you don't play golf in the West, heat is not heat. All heat is not created the same.
It is not.
So we had a good laugh about that. But yes.
Literally hilarious. That, I mean, now that we're sitting here, everyone's okay, but I mean, just you must have been like.
Listen, I'm telling you, you are. I don't know. What is it? What are we about to? How many miles is it from Philly to Arizona?
I mean, what are we at 1,000 change there?
Easy, right? So, I'm that far away from my family, and they're thinking I'm having fun, and I'm literally dying. I'm like, I cannot tell you.
How often do you wear this watch? Just during these types of activities, or do you wear it kind of in your days?
Now that I'm more acutely aware of, the condition of my body, I've made a lot of changes. I only wear it when I play, mainly for the golf feature.
Okay, so you're finally back to where you bought it for.
But guess what? In the back of my head, I know when I need to check that body battery. Okay. And it's still not a bad thing to do, with regard to exercise. And if you, say, are you a bike rider or
I was once.
Weightlifter or something like that?
Yeah.
It's not a bad idea to know
how hard you're pushing.
Yeah, because, as you get older, there's only but so high we are supposed to allow our heart rates to get anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not like go hard or go home. You want to keep that heart rate within a certain parameter. We're not 20-something-year-old guys.
No, we can't go up to 7,000 RPMs anymore.
So, that along with our stress, I mean, we being in business, being entrepreneurs, every day is not necessarily a banner day. So we have to manage our stress levels too.
Yeah.
So, pay attention, if I wear it on occasion, I'll watch it and make sure, okay, calm down, it's not that bad. It's not tough.
Can somebody be at 100 on the body battery?
I think you
it's
might.
Like no one's a perfect 10, right?
Yeah. I think you might do 99. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you that gone from when I was heavier, I've gone from times when the max I could wake up, fully rested, 67.
Seriously?
Oh, my goodness. It was so discouraging. I was like, well, what else do I got to do? I'm trying to eat right. I'm trying to get plenty of sleep. I'm trying to keep my stress levels down. And 67, 68.
I'm surprised insurance companies don't make people wear these for 3 months before
How about that?
Be like, we'll get you insured.
It's coming.
Well, you do think it's like, so you're watching yourself now. And I was once more tuned up than I am right now, but I do try to, as I'm working more, I'm mindful not to sit and eat 2,000 calories in one sitting.
Yeah.
And then you end up maybe paying for someone else who's not doing the same thing. And that's a much bigger discussion, but I can see how they may want to say, well, why don't we all wear one of these while we re-up and see kind of maybe why we're having the issues we're having or whatever. There was a time when I was very serious about my diet and, the way that our bodies feel when we're putting the right fuel in it versus being, we're being mindful to not stack on weight, but we may just eat less of something that's horrible for us.
Yeah.
And so the way that our bodies feel, like when you're eating right, your body just, and not to mention mood, everything just elevates to a level that you're like, oh my God, I didn't even know this was possible
Right.
to feel like this.
Right.
And it's really nice to do that. And it's very hard to be that strict, but you can keep elements of that with you.
I think I think it's all a matter of to your point, moderation.
Yeah.
As far as excessive eating, we are at a place now where beef intake has to be monitored. I can't eat steak, 2 times a week, once a week. It's scaled back to once a month, And I realize when I step on the scale, and you still feel a little sluggish, I notice that I will carry the weight of that beef meal almost 2 days.
Right.
So you think about what you put in your body is taking 2 days to process.
Yeah. And I'm not the scientist to say if that's good or bad, but something feels weird about that.
Yeah, something sounds weird about that. So, I'm learning to pay a little more attention to my body. And not only that, to borrow a term, iteration.
Yeah.
Each decade is a different iteration of the same carcass. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Believe it or not, for as good as you feel, there is a different iteration. There has been some drop off to some extent. Maybe not perceptible, but there has been, somewhat of a drop off as we go decade to decade, Now I'm in my early 60s and I feel good. I think I look good. I could still function in every capacity that I've ever been able to function in, but I know there's a drop off, from what I could do in my 40s. Now, the difference, there is a little bit of a jostling, right? Because in my 40s, I wasn't taking care of myself as well as I'm taking care of myself now in my 60s. So I think we're kind of inverting that dichotomy a little bit.
Well, is that
right
a bronze to brains inversion, meaning that?
Yeah, I'm not invincible.
Yeah, meaning like, well, the reason you weren't eating as well in your 40s is because you don't know as much as you know now.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
In my 40s, you kind of felt like you were never going to get old.
Yeah.
You felt like, I can do this forever. I don't know what happened to those old people, but for me, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
No, it does happen to us all, right?
It does happen to us, and it is. They've said, before somebody's 40 years old, you hear people talking about, I don't know, when you hit 40, something changes, and I would say in general that's sort of true. And when I see like a 95-year-old walking, I mean, we should have like a medal of honor to just give that person for getting out of fucking bed that morning. I mean, if my body hurts the way it does and they're walking, like going and doing their grocery shopping, you're just like, you're amazing.
My dad is 92.
Wow.
He still drives. He takes care of himself. No caregivers. He lives, he can take full care of himself, 92. Mm-hmm. 92. So,
is he a caregiver kind of guy?
No.
Is he a take my license away kind of guy?
Nope. That guy, man, he's like Mr. Magoo behind the wheel. Sorry, Dad. Watch out for Enoch, man.
Yeah, my mom was. She's only with us, but she was not someone who was going to have her license taken away. Yeah. She's like,
these are old folks that they feel like, you know what? I deserve it. Nobody's going to, it's going to be by my terms.
Yeah, you will have to kill me to get that license. I don't even care about the license, to get the keys.
Yeah. But, don't you, not to drift off the point too much, but wouldn't it make sense that maybe after 75, maybe you have to take another driver's license and maybe another one at 76 and another one at 77.
It feels reasonable because if you think about how different of a human are you from the age from 10 to 30, I mean, our bodies, I think, are actually changing that much. It's just not as perceptible or visible as it is when you're actually growing up. But we all sustain quite a bit of cellular death when we, which is not as visible. Kind of like that arid Southwest heat. It might be from the inside out.
Yeah.
The outside.
Yes, 100%.
In,
100%.
So,
and I'm not saying, God bless anyone who is still with the dexterity to be able to do these kind of things. But I think for the sake of the safety of society, that, let's potentially just help our seniors, be aware of where they may be. Your sight may not be as, as clear as it used to be.
It's not.
Your hearing. I know my father has hearing issues.
Yeah.
And he wears a hearing aid. And when I talk to him, the volume of the conversation is a little elevated.
Yeah.
Now, what happens if there's a rescue vehicle coming,
They gotta go around
through an intersection he doesn't hear.
Yeah.
He doesn't see him. Behind a big building, here's a fire truck, and he doesn't hear it. He's got the green light.
Well, we were saying stuff like that to my mom, which is, Mom, let's take a step beyond you, which is, okay, we can maybe accept that maybe you might get hurt in that car accident, but what about, you're assuming you're hitting a telephone pole, you're assuming you're hitting a tree or something else. What about the stroller down the sidewalk scenario? Yeah. And is that how you want the last page of your book to be written?
Wow. How did she take that?
She goes, it won't be. She was
I'm
right.
Sure of that.
She's like,
sure of that.
She's like, it won't be. She's like, you see this shit?
Next question.
Next question. I always knew you were a dumbass. I should have been on somebody else.
Oh my goodness.
All right, I'm gonna wrap us up by saying thank you for coming in.
Absolutely,
and how much
man.
fun it was.
It was great
having that conversation with you.
Yes.
And man, good times. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Take care.